Over the past week, we've watched three moments that together tell you everything you need to know about this presidency. First, at a White House Easter event, Trump's spiritual advisor literally compared him to Jesus, talking about betrayal, false accusations, and how no one had paid the price like you. Then, in a primetime Iran address, the president bragged about tremendous progress in the war while threatening to bomb an entire country back to the Stone Ages. And finally, just yesterday, he jumped on Truth Social with an expletive filled Easter week rant at Iran, warning that they'd be living in hell if they didn't do exactly what he wanted. So, three moments, just a few days apart, one through line about how Trump sees himself, God, and American military power. This is Patty with Politically Pomp, and you're tuned in to the Breakdown, where we slow the chaos in DC down enough that you can actually make sense of it without the noise of cable news. So let's start with the Easter event. This wasn't some fringe rally. It was an official White House Easter gathering with religious leaders and officials. Trump on stage with the presidential seal behind him, and after he spoke, his longtime spiritual advisor took the mic. And in plain English, here's what she told him: that no one has paid the price like you've paid the price, and it almost cost you your life. He has been betrayed and arrested and falsely accused, and that it's a familiar pattern to what Jesus went through. She tied his political rise directly to the resurrection. Because he rose, you rose up. And because Jesus was victorious, Trump will be victorious in all you put your hands to. That's not subtle. That's not a nice prayer for a leader. That is a Christian pastor putting the president into a Jesus narrative of persecution, sacrifice, and guaranteed victory. It's not just cringe, it's dangerous. First, it smashes the wall between faith and the state in the worst way possible. When you tell people Trump is here because of God and that he has paid the price like Jesus, that opposing him is resisting a divine plan, you aren't just offering spiritual comfort. You're laying the groundwork to treat any accountability, any legal consequence, as an attack on God's chosen instrument. Second, it wraps a very earthly political project in religious immunity. Trump's indictments become persecution, investigations become crucifixions, elections become spiritual warfare. That's how you move people from, I like his policies, to, I must defend him no matter what because he suffers for us. And to be clear, plenty of Christians were horrified. Theologians, pastors across multiple traditions called it almost blasphemous and pointed out that there was literally a bishop standing on stage while Trump was being compared to Jesus. This isn't people who hate religion versus people of faith. It's people who refuse to let Jesus be used as a PR shield for a politician. So that's Easter at the White House. The president cast as a suffering, nearly crucified figure, divinely destined to win at whatever he does. Later, Trump gave a national primetime address about the war in Iran. The White House billed it as an update on the tremendous progress and a path to ending the conflict. On the surface, he tried to sound like a victorious commander-in-chief. He claimed the U.S. and its allies had utterly destroyed large parts of Iran's military, obliterating its navy and crippling its air force and missile program. He said Iran's ability to retaliate had been nearly eradicated and its defense industry decimated. He bragged that the U.S. is winning big and that the regime's original leaders are all gone, hinting at quiet regime change already underway. But then came the threats. Trump promised to hit them extremely hard over the next 2 to 3 weeks, framing it as the final push. And he repeated again and again that if Iran doesn't agree to the deal he wants, the U.S. will bring them back to the Stone Ages, where they belong. He spelled out what that meant: striking each and every one of Iran's power-generating facilities, like at the same time, renewing his threat to take down the electrical grid, civilian infrastructure that keeps hospitals open, food cold, water pumps running, things like that. This is not just colorful language. It's the President of the United States describing, on camera, a plan to deliberately take out an entire country's basic life support systems as leverage in negotiations. There's at least three huge problems baked into that. One, collective punishment is illegal. International law is pretty clear. Deliberately targeting civilian infrastructure to punish a population with power, water, sanitation is collective punishment and violates the laws of war. He's casually describing something that would amount to a war crime, and it's just him getting tough. Two, he's selling escalation as peace. In the same breath, he says the war will end shortly, that we're close to the deal of the century, and promises weeks more of extreme bombing and potential Stone Age type strikes. Those things don't line up. If anything, that speech made a ceasefire feel less likely, not more. 3, he completely erases the human cost. Iran is home to tens of millions of people. Stone Age is not a movie line. It's a description of plunging an entire population into chaos by destroying the systems that keep them alive. There's no acknowledgement of civilians, of hospitals, of children. Just a fantasy of total domination delivered like a campaign slogan. So now we have Easter casting him as a Jesus figure, and a primetime speech where the same man is casually threatening to bomb millions of people's basic infrastructure into oblivion. Then we get to yesterday. On Easter weekend, instead of offering any kind of calming or unifying message, Trump took to his Truth Social with an expletive-filled rant aimed at Iran over the closing of the Strait of Hormuz. In the post, he demanded that Iran open the effing Strait and warned its leaders they'd be living in hell if they didn't comply, tossing in a mocking, performative nod to religious language to drive the point home when he said, "Praise be to Allah." It wasn't a careful diplomatic statement. It was a public tantrum directed at another country in the middle of an active conflict by the President of the United States. It treated nuclear-age brinkmanship like a reality TV storyline and faith like a prop for his anger. And because it came just days after being cast as a persecuted, quasi-sacred figure in weeks of promising to bring Iran back to the Stone Ages, it didn't come out of nowhere. It fit perfectly into the story he's already telling about himself. The savior who suffers, the strong man who doesn't blink, and the man who will unleash hell on enemies foreign and domestic. So when you line these moments up in order, the pattern's even clearer. At the Easter event, faith is being used to insulate Trump from criticism. He's not just a politician whose choices can be debated. He's someone who has paid the price, like Jesus, been betrayed and falsely accused, and rose up by God's plan. Saying no to Trump in that frame starts to look like saying no to God's will. Then in the Iran address, military powers being wielded with almost no moral breaks. He boasts about overwhelming destruction, threatens bombing of civilian infrastructure, and calls it winning. Anyone who objects can be brushed off as weak, unpatriotic, or secretly on the enemy's side. And in the True Social rant, those themes get smashed together into one Easter week outburst. Holy language, personal grievance, and very real threats of mass suffering all rolled into a single post. Together, they sketch out a pretty specific kind of politics. A leader wrapped in religious imagery, cast as persecuted savior. The same leader openly flirting with war crimes and collective punishment, confident that his base will read it as a righteous strength instead of reckless cruelty, and a communication style that turns nuclear-age foreign policy into a stage for his personal drama. So if you're exhausted by this, that's normal. You're not supposed to watch a president get compared to Jesus in the morning, threaten to bomb a country back to the Stone Age on TV that night, and then on Easter morning wake up to hear him say them back to living in hell. But that's exactly why paying attention right now matters. These clips and posts aren't just noise. They're signals to his base, to Iran, to the courts, to the rest of us about how he intends to use his power. So when you see the Easter clip, when you see the Stone Age sound bites, and when you read the True Social rant floating around, Don't treat them as isolated, weird moments. See them as one story. A president who mixes worship language, personal grievance, and threats of mass suffering, and who no longer seems to recognize any line between his ego, God, and his own powers. As always, this is Patty with Politically Pomp, and this has been The Breakdown. If you like what I'm doing here, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and follow me on Substack for more. I'll see you guys next time.